Thank you for your teaching. I have heard that there's a dark side meditation. How can that be, and could you kindly explain? Since it's very difficult to reach enlightenment by meditation alone, what can we do to ensure that we are heading towards Buddha's Pure Land, especially for those at the end of life? Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, okay. So there's a dark side of meditation. Usually in many meditation literature, they were quite hesitant to explain the dark side of meditation because they don't want to scare you. And especially, maybe I think I should be daring enough to say that, especially Chinese Buddhism. They painted a lot of rosy side of meditation, and maybe they don't want to discourage people from doing meditation. And they always mention the benefits of meditation. Or meditation can make you become more diligent, have more wisdom. Meditation can make you calm down better. Meditation, they can even say, meditation will make you become healthy, make you become more beautiful than before. It's the same as yoga, etc., etc. They painted a lot of good stuff, good things about meditation, especially on the Chinese side, which is good. I like it. But if you have not had the right teacher, then you could have gone astray. You may have done something wrong that would really brought you a lot of what would be classified as sickness syndrome, or even mental sickness syndrome. But then, if you look at the Western literature of meditation, many people also give you the dark side of meditation, and they always, and we call that, some people call that the Kundalini syndrome. What is a Kundalini syndrome? A Kundalini syndrome is if in your meditation you have gone so deep and you haven't had a good teacher to direct you, I always give an example. It's difficult to explain. What is Kundalini? Kundalini is actually a coil. It's a Sanskrit word. It's a coil of energy. You have certain chakras, certain locations where you have energy. And a human body is, Kundalini is when you were in the mother's body inside as a baby, then you were actually assimilating the mom's nutrition inside. And once you came out, you're being cut off, but the belly button is the place where you become cut off, and you got stuck in there. And then if you're going through meditation, you're actually going to clear all these plucked up points. And another example to give you is, imagine that life is not just one lifetime. We've been developing from previous life onto this life. We don't just came out from nowhere, just from our mom's belly. We came out. No, we have carried our karma, reincarnate as an embryo in the mom's body, and then came out. We have many lives before, and in all this many immeasurable lives, we have committed a lot of karmic energy through thoughts, through speech, and through our actions. We have committed a lot of these. And the nature of this karmic energy created, if we look at it from a morality side, is either wholesome or good, unwholesome, bad, or neutral. And in many cases, you may have committed more unwholesome than wholesome. What are these unwholesome karmic energy that you created? For example, killing animals for food. People slaughter animals for food, and you kill. Many weeks ago, I happened to come across a video on YouTube in a village. Women took up the task of killing pigs, and the way they kill pigs was horrible. It's very cruel. I don't want to see it again. It's good for me. The reason why I want to see it is I want to explain that, how cruelty could be if you slaughter animals for food. So we have done a lot of killing, we have done a lot of lying, we have created a lot of bad karmic energy for sexual misconduct, for example. And we even think that sexual misconduct was a good thing, erroneously. We don't know. It's not good for you. The reason why we are in the world of desire is because we already have committed that kind of relationship and they came back again. Very, very complicated. So in other words, when we got inside, I'm talking about Kundalini, but I have to go back a little bit so that you know what Kundalini means. So we carry a lot of karmic energy onto the present. And when you created all this karma, it's just like a computer where you key in from the keyboard and everything gets registered into the disk drive. It won't go away. Every bad thought that you germinate, good or bad actions, everything got registered in the memory, just as the computer register of everything you key from the keyboard. And all this garbage, greediness, hatred, jealousy, arrogance, many, many of these things will register in there. It is a huge garbage tank with a lot of garbage in it. And if you have done meditation and you have done so deeply into it, all those who have just superficially do meditation, they won't have even a chance to open up the garbage, the gate of the immeasurable garbage tank. If you have done, for example, 5 hours per day of meditation, really have concentrated good, and you do samatha and vipassana, then all of a sudden you came into the garbage tank and you open up the garbage tank. You were overwhelmed with all this karmic energy that you created in the past. All this depression, hatred, jealousy, arrogance, millions of mental hindrances, mental afflictions. They were garbage energy in there. They rushed at you. And you have to clean them up. So Kundalini awakening, many people say, is a cleaning process. Particularly those who learn meditation and Qigong at the same time, you can easily get into Kundalini syndrome. And once you get into Kundalini syndrome, all of a sudden your Qi will be flowing all over the place. All of a sudden you have a huge headache, or your depression became even more serious. And all of a sudden you become an introvert. You were an extrovert. You like to talk to people. All of a sudden you didn't want to talk to anybody. All of a sudden you didn't want to mix up with anybody in a social relationship. You change your personality. And every day you could go through some physical discomfort. You have to yell out. You become more jealous. But when you are normal again, you're just like a normal person. And if you want to read books about Kundalini awakening, you can always get into Greenwell. I think I forgot. There was a professor, a lady who went through Kundalini awakening, and she went through in more or less a good way. Some people went through it in a good way, where they didn't have to suffer that much. Some people suffer so much physically and mentally. For how long? 1 year, 2 years, 3 years? Could be 10 years, 15 years, 20 years. Some until death. But, for example, there was a very famous philosopher who passed away about 40, 50 years ago, very famous one, Krishnamurti, the Indian philosopher, very famous and almost like close to a saint. And he went through Kundalini, and every night he had to yell out in agony for a few hours. Like, yell in agony. He was really yelling out in agony with pain. And then the next morning it was okay again. And some people could suffer from chronic fatigue. You had to sleep 15 hours per day, and you still feel that as if you didn't have enough sleep. And a lot of syndromes that it's unbearable. But many of these people who experience Kundalini awakening, after they gradually recover from it, and if you interview them and say, is it worth going through? He said, it was painful, but it's worth it. It's worth it. Because you're cleaning up the garbage. When they were suffering, they were really suffering. It's an agony. It's painful. But once they have gone through it and gradually recover from it, they say, I was thankful for such an experience. I cleaned up all my bad karma, most of my bad karma. So if you were willing to go through this hardship, and then going back, looking back, it's worth it. You may be, it's okay. And I suspect that I haven't read it from literature of the Buddhist monk, very high-level Buddhist monks. Many of them went through that. That's the reason why in the poems they say, what did they say? In most of them, I summarize the poems in a few words. I have to think in Chinese before I can translate it. 不是一番寒徹骨，怎得梅花撲鼻香? If you're not going through painful experiences, you won't slip in the fragrance of the flowers. In other words, you have to go through stormy nights, stormy weather. You have to go through a lot of hurdles in order to realize enlightenment. They all went through it, and they think it's worth it. You have to die all the time, died a few times. Doesn't mean physically death. You mean like you have to go through this dying experiences a few times. And also, Kundalini awakening also happened to people in many strange ways. There were books written about a guy got struck by lightning, standing near the phone booth, and all of a sudden he had a Kundalini awakening. He was more intelligent than before. It was like superpower memory, supernatural memory. So all this Kundalini awakening could also happen after an accident that people have. Something happened to the brain. So if you're not prepared, I suggest that don't go through it. It's a painful experiences. I haven't gone through these experiences before. I may have gone through some similar, gradual, but some people really met it with hardships. And when they recover, I know some people who have gone through this and they couldn't spend their time in the practice. They took music and they become an expert in music. For an average person to learn, for example, a guitar, it took him 3 years to learn a guitar. He was able to master the guitar in 1 month. It took some people half a year to do ukulele, musical instruments. He could learn it in a few days. So some people to learn the theory of music, all the dots, all these things, the chords and the frets and all those people don't know, he could understand it within 1 week. So all of a sudden everything changed, the whole world changed. So how can, I don't know how detailed you want me to explain it. It's a dark side meditation. You may suffer physically and mentally. Plus, if you don't have a good teacher who have experienced it, they cannot help you. Because many people teach from just reading a book. They teach you from watching a video. They watch a video, they read a book, and they set up an institute of meditation, and you go and learn meditation. When you have problems, they couldn't solve the problems. It's very difficult to find really advanced, good teachers nowadays. If you run into problems, they can save you. But read Greenwell's book on Kundalini awakening, and she will tell you a lot. She conducted 3,000 cases of Kundalini awakening. There are people who've gone through it peacefully. There are people who've gone through it painfully. But most of them said good experiences, valuable experiences. But if you can't go through the storm, don't do it. But then, should I meditate? Yes, you should meditate. But don't get too deep into it. Don't get obsessed with it. And some people always say, oh, I like to meditate, And for some people, I know a friend who usually had very strong willpower in doing anything. Say that if he wanted to do this business, he wanted it to be successful, he would spend 24 hours per day to make sure that he spent all the time to make sure they're successful. His very firm mind, very high willpower. And one day he was told that meditation was good for him. He took up meditation. He applied the same willpower in meditation, hoping that he could get enlightenment as fast as possible. He went into problem. Because his willpower pushed him so hard at it that he got obsessed with it. He meditated 5 hours per day, 7 days per week. Because it was so much. Meditation is like boiling a pot of water. Once the fire has to be right. Once it reaches a boiling point, you have to reduce the temperature, reduce the fire to let it just boil. If you overboil it, it will spill. If you don't have enough fire in it, it won't get boiled. So you have to have the right temperature, the right fire. It's difficult.